Mark's hands trembled as he read the email from HR. After 5 years of dedicated service, he was being promoted to senior project manager, with a salary that would finally cover his daughter's medical treatments. He looked up from his phone to see his boss, Victoria, standing in his doorway with a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I meant every word of that recommendation letter," she said softly. "You saved me that night when you could have just walked away. Some debts can never be repaid, but I'm trying. If you're wondering how a single dad's act of kindness toward his difficult boss changed both their lives forever, stay with me until the end. This story might just restore your faith in humanity. If it touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us of the power of compassion." 6 months earlier, Mark Wilson was drowning. Not literally, but in the overwhelming responsibilities of being a single father to 8-year-old Lily while working 60-hour weeks under Victoria Reeves, the notoriously demanding marketing director at Horizon Advertising. Victoria had earned her reputation as the Ice Queen through her exacting standards and seemingly impossible expectations. She never accepted excuses, never showed vulnerability, and never, ever fraternized with her team outside of mandatory company functions. Mark didn't have the luxury of complaining. His daughter Lily had been diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis 2 years ago, shortly after her mother abandoned them both for a new life in California. The medical bills were crushing, and Mark's insurance only covered a portion of the treatments. He needed this job, no matter how difficult Victoria made it. That Thursday evening, Mark was working late again. Victoria had rejected his campaign proposal for the 3rd time, demanding a complete overhaul by morning. His babysitter had already texted twice, reminding him that she needed to leave by 9. It was already 8:30. "Wilson." Victoria's sharp voice cut through his concentration. "Where are the Nielsen numbers I asked for?" Mark suppressed a sigh. "I sent them to your email an hour ago, Ms. Reeves." Victoria frowned, checking her phone. "So you did," she said without apology. "I need you to incorporate them into the presentation before you leave tonight." "Ms. Reeves, Mark hesitated, then decided to take the risk. "My babysitter needs to leave by 9. My daughter." "Your personal arrangements are not my concern, Wilson," Victoria cut him off coldly. "This presentation is for the Carlson account. If we lose it, perhaps you should worry less about your babysitter and more about your job security." The threat hung in the air between them. Mark swallowed hard and nodded. "I'll get it done." Victoria turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Mark to frantically call his neighbor Mrs. Patel, begging for help. The kind elderly woman agreed to relieve his babysitter, but she couldn't stay past midnight. Mark would have to work fast. 3 hours later, Mark finally finished the revisions. The office was nearly empty, just a few other desperate souls burning the midnight oil. He sent the presentation to Victoria's email, packed his laptop, and headed for the elevator. As he passed by the company bar on the ground floor, a trendy space where clients were entertained, he was surprised to see Victoria sitting alone at the counter, several empty glasses in front of her. She was arguing with the bartender. "I said, give me another," she demanded, her words slightly slurred. "Ms. Reeves, I think you've had enough," the bartender replied firmly. "Let me call you a cab." "Don't tell me what I've had," Victoria snapped, her composed facade cracking. "I sign your paychecks, remember?" Mark should have walked away. This woman had made his life miserable for 2 years. She'd never shown him an ounce of compassion or understanding. He had a sick child waiting at home. But something in her posture, the slight slump of her shoulders, the way her hand trembled as she reached for an empty glass, stopped him. Behind the armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup, Victoria Reeves suddenly looked very human. And very alone. With a sigh, Mark approached the bar. "Ms. Reeves? Is everything all right?" Victoria turned, her eyes struggling to focus. "Wilson? What are you still doing here?" spying on me?" The bartender gave Mark a pleading look. "She's been here for hours. I can't serve her anymore, and she's refusing to let me call her a ride." "I don't need a babysitter," Victoria said, attempting to stand and nearly toppling over. Mark caught her arm instinctively. "Let me help you get home safely," he offered, making a split-second decision he might regret. "My car's in the garage." "I don't need your help," Victoria insisted, but her legs seemed to disagree as they wobbled beneath her. "Consider it professional courtesy," Mark said gently. "I just sent you the revised presentation. You'll want to be clear-headed to review it tomorrow." This professional reasoning seemed to penetrate Victoria's alcohol-fogged mind. She nodded reluctantly. Getting Victoria to his car was a challenge. She alternated between haughty silence and mumbled complaints about the company's CEO. Mark listened without comment, focusing on keeping her upright. "Where do you live?" he asked once they were in his modest sedan. Victoria gave him an address in the city's most exclusive high-rise district. Of course. The drive was awkward. Victoria stared out the window, occasionally wiping at her eyes. Mark pretended not to notice. "He fired my brother today," she finally said, breaking the silence. "I'm sorry." "Daniels. The CEO. My brother worked in the London office. Daniels fired him. Said he was deadweight. On his birthday." Victoria laughed bitterly. 15 years with the company. Gone. Mark didn't know what to say. He'd never imagined Victoria having a brother, let alone caring so deeply about anyone. "I threatened to quit," she continued. "Daniels said he'd ruin me in this industry if I did. Said I should be grateful he keeps me around despite my emotional instability." She spat the last words. They arrived at her building, and Mark helped her to the elevator. Victoria fumbled with her keys at her door, dropping them twice before Mark gently took them from her hand. Her apartment was exactly what he'd expected, minimalist, expensive, and impersonal. No photos. No mementos. Just sleek furniture and abstract art. "Do you have someone who can check on you?" Mark asked as Victoria collapsed onto her sofa. "Who would that be?" she asked with surprising vulnerability. "My assistant who hates me? My ex-husband who cheated on me? My parents who think my career is a waste of my education?" She closed her eyes. "Just go, Wilson. You've done your good deed." Mark hesitated. Victoria was clearly in no state to be left alone. She might fall, or worse, continue drinking. He thought of Lily waiting at home, of Mrs. Patel who needed to leave. "Let me at least get you some water and aspirin before I go," he said. Victoria didn't respond, already half asleep. Mark found her kitchen, filled a glass with water, and located some pain relievers in a bathroom cabinet. He placed them on the coffee table beside her, then noticed her phone buzzing with an incoming call. The screen displayed CEO Daniels. Without thinking, Mark answered. Ms. Reeves' phone. There was a pause. "Who is this?" demanded a gruff voice. "This is Mark Wilson, sir, from marketing. Ms. Reeves is indisposed at the moment." "Indisposed or drunk?" Daniels asked sharply. Mark made a split-second decision. "Ms. Reeves has come down with a severe migraine, sir. She asked me to bring her some files and medication. She's resting now but wanted me to let you know she'll be working from home tomorrow to finalize the Carlson presentation." Another pause. "Tell her to call me when she's feeling better. The board meeting has been moved up. We need that presentation by noon." "I'll let her know, sir." After hanging up, Mark wrote a quick note explaining the call and placed it beside the water and aspirin. He found a light blanket and gently draped it over Victoria's sleeping form. Then he called Mrs. Patel, apologizing profusely and promising to be home within 30 minutes. As he turned to leave, Victoria's hand suddenly caught his wrist. Her eyes were open but unfocused. "Why are you being kind to me?" she asked, her voice small and confused. "I'm horrible to you." Mark thought about it for a moment. Because everyone deserves kindness, especially when they're struggling. Even bosses from hell. He smiled slightly. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I won't remember this tomorrow," she whispered. "I never do." "That's okay," Mark said gently. "Get some rest, Ms. Reeves." The next morning, Mark arrived at work exhausted but on time. He'd been up half the night with Lily, who'd had a pain flare-up. He expected Victoria to be absent, or at the very least, to pretend nothing had happened. To his surprise, she was already in the office, impeccably dressed as always, but with subtle shadows under her eyes that her makeup couldn't quite conceal. She didn't acknowledge him when he passed her office. At 10 a.m., his email pinged with a meeting request from Victoria for 10:15 in conference room B. Mark's stomach sank. This was it. She was embarrassed and angry, and he was about to pay the price for witnessing her vulnerability. He entered the conference room to find Victoria alone, standing by the window. "Close the door, Wilson," she said without turning around. Mark obeyed, bracing himself. "I remember everything," she said quietly, still facing the window. "I always do, despite what I said. The alcohol, it doesn't make me forget. It just makes me honest." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "You could have left me there. You could have let Daniels know I was drunk. You could have used my vulnerability against me in a dozen ways." "I would never do that," Mark said simply. Victoria studied him for a long moment. "No, I don't think you would." She took a deep breath. "Your daughter, Lily, isn't it? How old is she?" Mark blinked, surprised she knew his daughter's name. 8. Victoria nodded. "And she has juvenile arthritis. That's why you never push back on overtime. That's why you need this job so badly." "How did you?" "I make it my business to know my team," Victoria said. "Even if I don't always show it." She hesitated. "I've been unfair to you, Wilson. Demanding without being understanding. That changes today." She handed him a folder. Inside was paperwork for the company's enhanced medical insurance plan, a benefit usually reserved for senior management. "I've spoken to HR. You and Lily will be covered under this plan effective immediately. It includes specialized pediatric care and physical therapy." Mark stared at the papers, unable to speak. "Additionally," Victoria continued, her voice becoming more businesslike, "I'm adjusting your schedule. You'll work from home 2 days a week to accommodate Lily's appointments. Your salary remains the same." "Ms. Reeves, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything. This isn't charity, Wilson. It's recognition of your value to this company." She paused. "And perhaps a small repayment for your kindness last night." Mark felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "Thank you." Victoria nodded briskly. "Now, about the Carlson presentation. Your revisions were excellent. I've recommended you lead the account moving forward." "But that's your biggest client," Mark protested. "And you've earned it." Victoria's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing a hint of the vulnerable woman from the night before. "My brother is moving here next month. Daniels doesn't know it yet, but I've created a position for him in our department. I'll need to focus on that transition." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "One more thing, Wilson. My friends call me Tori." With that, she left, her heels clicking purposefully down the hallway. Over the next 6 months, everything changed. Victoria, Tori, became a different kind of boss. Still demanding excellence, but now with empathy and flexibility. She met Lily during the company's family day, spending an hour discussing their shared love of painting. She approved Mark's proposal for a remote work policy that benefited all parents in the department. When Lily was hospitalized with a severe flare-up, Tori personally covered the shifts in Mark's workload. She visited the hospital with art supplies for Lily and coffee for Mark. "Why are you doing all this?" Mark asked her one evening as they sat in the hospital corridor while Lily slept. Tori was quiet for a moment. "That night, you saw me at my worst and still treated me with dignity. Do you know how rare that is? People either fear me or want something from me. You just helped. No agenda." She looked at him directly. "You reminded me of who I used to be, before this industry hardened me. Before I started believing that kindness was weakness." "And now?" Mark asked. Tori smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. "Now I remember that the strongest people are those who remain kind despite having every reason not to be." She nodded toward Lily's room. "Like her. Like you." Which brings us back to today, with Mark reading the email about his promotion. A promotion that would finally give him financial security and the flexibility Lily needed. As Tori, stood in his doorway, Mark realized something profound had happened. A simple act of kindness on a difficult night had created ripples neither of them could have anticipated. It hadn't just changed their professional relationship, it had reminded two wounded people of their humanity. "Thank you," Mark said simply. Tori shook her head. "No, Mark. Thank you for not walking away when you had every reason to. Some people come into our lives to teach us lessons we didn't know we needed to learn." As she turned to leave, she added, "By the way, Lily mentioned she's interested in that summer art camp. I've arranged for the company to sponsor her attendance as part of our new community outreach program." Mark watched her walk away, marveling at how life could change so dramatically from one moment of choice. He had helped his drunk boss simply because it was the right thing to do, never expecting anything in return. And yet, that single act of compassion had transformed both their lives in ways neither could have imagined. Sometimes, the kindness we show others in their darkest moments returns to us in ways we never expect. And sometimes, the people we least expect to remember are the ones who never forget. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more reminders that compassion can change lives, sometimes even our own. Remember, kindness costs nothing, but its value is immeasurable.